أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يسألونك ماذا ينفقون قل ما أنفقتم من خير فللوالدين والأقربين واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل وما تفعلوا من خير فإن الله به عليم صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات بيجي محمد وعلى محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. The ayat that I recited is from Surah Baqarah, verse number 215, in which a discussion of infaq is taking place, with a question from the beginning where it says they ask you as to what they should spend. Say, let whatever wealth you spend be for the parents, relatives, orphans, the needy, and the traveler. Allah indeed knows whatever good you do. When you look at this ayah and many such verses in which Quran talks about the importance of infaq and the importance of spending and the importance of giving away, you always see that parents are up there in that first tier because they are the first and foremost responsibility. And therefore, even when other concepts of giving are concerned, you find them to be on top of the list. And if you remember that hadith, which I recited just the gist of it, because I did not have the Arabic in front of me, I have the Arabic today. So I will recite that hadith as well, in which how sadaqah, qarz, and sila rahim were divided, and how sila rahim was given priority over qarz and as well as sadaqah. Now when it comes to the discussion of infaq, it could be divided into 2 or 4 different categories. Infaq is amongst the wajibat, and there's infaq which is amongst the mustahabbat. Then you can also create a category of makruh type of infaq, and you can also create a category of mubah type of infaq. But that's basically our own creation. But there really are 2 categories of infaq, which is one is wajib, the other one is mustahab. And then the further division is, one is materialistic, the other one is spiritual or immaterial infaq. So you can further divide them in those categories. But the wajib infaq is, for example, khums, zakat, kafarat, fidya, and nafaqa. Yes, nafaqa is also amongst the infaq, that which is the obligatory action upon the father towards, family. So we see that khums itself, it's the reality. Inshallah, I'll dedicate one day just discussing khums and zakat, so I won't go into the details of that. Zakat, kafara, that which becomes obligatory after, for example, if someone breaks an oath or someone breaks a fast or any of those things, covenant, then there's a kafara that is due upon you, and that's a part of infaq, that you have to take some money out, or you have to pay someone, or you have to feed someone. When it comes to fidya and nafaqa, I just wanted to differentiate between the 2 categories of kafara and fidya. A lot of time people mix these 2 things. There's a difference between the 2. Kafara is much more severe than fidya. Kafara is feeding 60 people or fasting for 60 days. That's kafara. If you take out the first one, which is freeing a slave, which is no longer possible, but feeding 60 destitute or fasting for 60 days, that's the kafara. So for example, if someone intentionally breaks their fast, this will be something which is due upon them. If you break one fast, 60 fasts are due. Or if you can make up 60, then you go ahead and feed 60 individuals. So that's how you make up the kafara for that fast. Therefore, we look at, a lot of times there's a category of fidya, which is also brought up. Fidya is much cheaper than that. Fidya is basically 750 grams of food, which should be given to someone who is obviously in need of food. If a person is unable to fast, for example, there's an illness, which is a continuous illness, which is not going away anytime soon. For example, someone is diabetic, and therefore they cannot fast because of their diabetes. And hence, what do? To get in the spirit of fasting, they go ahead and give fidya for each fast, which is 750 grams of food item, which could be equal to, in the area that you live in, varying from $5 to $10, for example, per fast. And you go ahead and give that out at the end of the month for however many fasts that you missed, and so that you have enjoyed the essence of fasting, although you were not literally fasting. So there's a difference between the two. A lot of times people say, or for example, someone who's pregnant, someone who's post-birth, and all of those people, there will be fidya upon them as well, although they have to make up the qada as well. So there are different categories of that, without going into the details and fiqh aspect of it, but these are all wajib infaq. What are the mustahab? Sadaqah. Sadaqah is not wajib. Sadaqah is what? It's something mustahab. Qard to the needy, to poor, destitute, and gifts to friends who are in need, for example. These could all be under the category of mustahab infaq. And then I divided two more. For number 3, makruh, giving others while there are more deserving people. Well, you have done infaq, but you've given to someone who's least deserving, although there are other people who could be more deserving. So that is infaq still, but it is what? It is a makruh infaq. And then there's mubah, giving people for expansion of their life. Since giving to remove their poverty is wajib. Someone is poor, there's poverty, you give them, it's wajib to give them. But to expand in whatever already they have, it's mubah. You're just expanding. They probably, could have survived without it. But then there are two other categories that I had divided. One is spiritual and one is materialistic. Materialistic we all understand, in the monetary means or something physical that has been given. But spiritual or immaterial is of the category when someone teaches, for example, someone something. That is also infaq. When you possess some knowledge and you go ahead and impart this knowledge to someone else. You know how to recite Quran beautifully with the rules of tajweed, you go ahead and teach that to someone, that is infaq. In fact, if you remember the story of a person who came to Rasulullah and he wanted to get married, Rasulullah got him a bride and he said, I'll marry you too. What is it that you can give as a bridal gift, as the mahriya? And he said, I don't have anything. I don't possess anything. I don't have any wealth. Prophet asked him, you may have something that you can sell to give something. So there has to be mahriya. He said, no, I have nothing. I possess nothing. Prophet said, do you know Quran? He said, yes, I know Quran. So, well, you will be responsible for teaching Quran to your wife. And that will serve as that infaq. So there means, it's not materialistic, but it is that spiritual sense of infaq. So what are best types of infaq? What is the best type of infaq? Ayat of Surah Al Imran 92 says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ وَمَا تُنْفِقُوا مِنْ شَيْءٍ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِهِ عَلِيمٌ. You will never attain piety until you spend out of what you hold dear to yourself. A lot of time we donate things to our houses of worship. We give things, out of goodwill, and there's nothing wrong in doing so. But a lot of time, the sofa that has been sitting in my basement, which I don't really need, let's just go ahead and give it to masjid. People will sit on it. Mu'mineen will use it and benefit it. Well, you had discarded it. So when it's not good enough for you, how can you go ahead and make it to be good enough for your house of worship? So just look at it from that aspect. Infaq is really when you give something part of what you dearly love. That which you could have easily have enjoyed yourself, now you're separating it from yourself. That's the real infaq, as this ayat of Quran is saying. You will never attain the highest virtuous rank until you spend out of what you hold dear. And whatever you misspend, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows it well. So the word birr is broader than khair and barakah. That's why the word birr is being used over here. Lan tanalul birra. It did not say lan tanalul khair or barakah, because the word birr has a broader context, broader sense than khair and barakah. The land which is ready for farming and agriculture is called birr. Keeping in mind how it will spread and produce in Quran, faith, act of righteousness, jihad, prayer, fulfillment of trust, and all of those things are examples of birr. They all fall under the category of birr. So that's why it's bigger than khair and it is bigger than barakat. Everyone is ordered to enjoin one another in acts of righteousness. It says what? Ta'awanu alal birri wat taqwa. Cooperate with one another. In what? In khair? No, khair has very limited spectrum. Ta'awanu alal birri wat taqwa. In those categories which go all under the concept of birr. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word birr. So there are a few examples of infaq from mu'mineen. Abu Talha al-Ansari, he owned most of the palm trees produced, the dates that produce dates in all of Medina. He owned it. It was his property. And also owned a huge and beautiful garden which had an enormous income for him. This garden was located right in front of Masjid Nabi. Prophet used to enter this garden, drink water from it, from the fountain therein, and then he would pass and go to the masjid, for example. This verse was revealed. لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. Abu Talha al-Ansari comes to Rasulullah, and he said, the most beloved thing I possess is this garden. That's something which I hold dear to. So, I want to spend it in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Prophet replied, it is a good transaction. No doubt. But I suggest that you give this to the poor and the needy within your family. He accepted it and divided it between them. He wanted to give it for Islam. Prophet said, no, go ahead and spend it on your family. Remember, as I said, that whenever spending comes, family is mentioned foremost, because they have haqq over everyone else. And that is the reason when a person died and Rasulullah was outside of Medina, he came back, and people said they had already done the janazah. He said, who died? He says, oh, he was a very generous person. He said, how so? He said, well, he left everything for Islam before dying. Prophet said, if I was around, I would not even stand in his janazah. If I was here, I would not even lead his janazah for the act that he did towards the end of his life. He said, giving everything for the sake of Islam, isn't that a good action? He said, no. He deprived the inheritors. He deprived those who had more right over this than the religion. Yes, make sure that you take care of them first, and then you go ahead and do it for the religion or for your deen. He said, now what will happen? The long run is that these children who are now going to be suffering because they're deprived of their right, they'll get poor, and their poverty will lead them towards kufr. So a whole generation will be lost from that. So therefore, make sure that you start from your own family first. And that's why that riwayat that I had mentioned the other night, I brought this riwayat. Prophet said, لَمَّا أُسْرِيَ بِي إِلَى السَّمَاءِ رَأَيْتُ عَلَى بَابِ الْجَنَّةِ ثَلَاثَةَ أَسْطُرٍ. That when I was taken to the Mi'raj, when I ascended to the heavens, I saw 3 lines written on the Arsh of Allah. As-Satru al-Ula or Satru al-Awwal, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ana Allahu la ilaha illa ana, sabaqat rahmati ghadabi. That I am Allah, I am the Lord, and there's no Lord besides me, and my rahmat exceeds my ghadab. That's the first line. Satru thani, as-sadaqatu bi-ashratin, that riwayat which I had recited, sadaqah has 10-fold reward. Wal-qardu bi-thamaniyata ashra. And when you give qarz and loan to someone, it has 18-fold reward. وَصِلَةُ الرَّحِمْ بِثَلَاثِينَ. And when you take care of your own family, there's 30-fold reward from it. So that just shows you the importance of taking care of the family first and then taking care of others. A person came to Ustad of Allama Tabatabai, Qadi Tabatabai, and he said to him that I want to learn Sayr Suluk, because Qadi Tabatabai was Arif, philosopher. His student is Allama Tabatabai. Just imagine, his student is Allama Tabatabai. What was he? So this man came to him, and Qadi Tabatabai responded to him by saying that have good suluk with your family first, then come and learn Sayru Suluk from me. Sayru Suluk is wayfare towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Entering into this journey to self-purification and, getting to those mushahadat and observation and attaining those ranks. He said, no, go take care of your family first, properly. If you can have good suluk with them, then I'll teach you Sayru Suluk. So it's basically telling us, the step to the self-purification, it begins from house. You got to make sure you take care of them first before you can even think about self-purification and think about getting up there. And then the last satr, which I'll skip because it's not related to our discussion. The number 2 example of infaq. The night Bibi Fatmatul Zahra salamullahi alayha, the night she got married and was being taken to the house of her husband, a beggar asked for, something, some sadaqah or infaq or help. She remembered this verse, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You cannot attain the highest virtues unless you spend part of what you dearly love. She changed her wedding dress and gave that to the beggar as a gift, because that was the most precious thing to her. You ask any bride today, on the day of your wedding or even after that, and how long they keep this bridal dress for them, which, by the way, they spend hundreds and thousands of dollars or rupees or whatever you want to call it, and it's only worn once for your wedding, because if you wear it again to another program, unless it's someone close, whatever, it's too much, because it's a bride's dress. So unfortunately, it only gets used once or twice. But there's so much money that goes behind it. And I'm not opposing it, that it should not be done. It could be done, but it could be donated later on to those who cannot afford it. Other less fortunate people, their brides, their daughters may not be able to afford such a thing. So therefore, this could be donated so that multiple people are able to use it. Otherwise, just hang as a memory in your closet and without being used. Janab Fatmatul Zahra, the night she got married and a beggar asked her something, she changed that clothes and she gave that, because that was the most precious thing that she had at that time. So it's a lesson for our brides as well as for our grooms. So not just the brides. There's a lot of money spent on the grooms and their dressing and their libas and all that stuff as well, which just hangs there, because they either grow out of it, they become bigger than that sherwani that they had gotten done for themselves. They go ahead and give it away to someone who can use it. And it's a good start for it. Number 3, once a guest came to Abu Dhar. Since Abu Dhar wasn't doing well, he asked the guest to slaughter one of the camels and prepare the food. They chose to slaughter the smaller or the weaker camel. Abu Dhar was not amused. He said, why didn't you choose the bigger camel? They said, well, we left it for you, that you might need it in future. He replied, the day of my need is the day when I go into my grave. And therefore, the ability to spend something big, even when I'm lacking for myself, is something which will be able to provide me that virtues this ayat is talking about. لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا. Lesson for all of us, are we prepared for the grave? The concept of grave comes and we start shivering, start getting scared. What is there to be scared of? A lot of people are scared to even go to Qabristan. Not here, alhamdulillah, people have the habit of attending the janazah, going to the funeral, attending the funeral, going to the cemeteries, for the burial, because, you got to understand that we're not that big of a community, so this is all the family that people have if someone dies in the community. But there are a lot of people who are just afraid of, graveyards. And unless someone in their own family passes away, they just don't see the need of going there, ever. No, it's good to pass by the graveyard sometime. Even there, you don't have anyone buried over there. There are Muslim graveyards. You go there, you pray Surah Fatiha for those who are buried there, and just imagine the reward that is associated with it. But are we prepared? If I was to ask, crowd over here, are we all prepared? You might say yes. And so what do you need in preparation when you travel? So for example, next week, you're traveling to Umrah, right? Or in August, in Zul Hajj, you're going for Hajj. You start preparing right now. for that travel. You start studying, you buy your ticket, you buy the package that you have to stay there at the hotels and all that stuff. You take care of all of those things ahead of time. This inevitable journey that everyone has to go. Have we prepared ourselves? Do we have the ticket? Do we have the means to get there? What is the ticket? When you're traveling to go to Hajj, for example, you need the visa, you need the passport, you need to have the ticket, you have all these things. And you need to bring a few clothes along with it, which is given. You don't really have to worry about that too much. But things that are not in your hand, for example, for a visa, getting the visa, having a passport which is valid, and ground package over there, and a ticket, for example. Two things are important. One, make sure that your kafan is always ready. Make sure that the kafan is always ready. There's nothing wrong if you bring a kafan from Karbala, Masjid from the Zari of Masumin, and keep it in house. No, it's not going to bring your death closer to you. Number two, have a grave ready for you. Purchase a grave. That's an investment that everyone has to make. Why not show some trust in God that we are prepared? I have these two things ready. The moment you call me, labbaik, I'm there. But people are scared. If I buy a kafan, that means I'm calling death upon me. If I buy a grave, that means I'm bringing death nearer and closer to me. So that's something which we need to come out of somehow, think that no, this is something, an investment that we have to make. So the same way you have luggage for traveling, documents and all that stuff, you need to have the grave and you need to have the kafan, or if you're traveling, as your traveling documents, if you want to make this journey towards Allah. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Shahadat is the infaq of life. So don't go away from the discussion that we had. Infaq was the main discussion, right? So we talked about different types of infaq, different types of spending. Shahadat, martyrdom, is also infaq. How does that mean? وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Do not suppose those who were slain in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they're dead. No, they're living and provided sustenance near their Lord. Based on this, we can consider martyrs of war to be alive. We send salutations onto the martyrs of Islam, especially the martyrs of Karbala. By addressing them, we seek their intercession as well. And so we see that they are also, by giving the sacrifice of their lives, that's infaq. What could be a bigger infaq than giving your own soul, giving your own nafs in the way of betterment of others. True example of altruism. Best example of ithar and preferring others over themselves. That I'll suffer, but with that, other people will not suffer. An arif thinks in this way. A mystic thinks that if it is bound that I must enter hell, oh Allah, make my wujud so big that there isn't any room left for anyone else. So that I am the one who's occupying all the space. So that nobody else is thrown into the hell. That's how a mystic thinks. That if I am bound to go to hell, then make my wujud so big that I'm occupying all the space. So that this person, okay, he's not going to go because there's no room left. Make my wujud that big. That's how this true ithar and altruism is. So therefore, the status of martyrs is also very high. There are many characteristics of martyrs bestowed by Allah. It says first drop of their blood washes away their sins. First drop of their blood washes all of their sins away. They are decorated with the libas of paradise, with the best of the fragrances, sees his place in paradise, gains access to visit all of paradise, and the veils are lifted and he finds himself in the proximity of Allah. So many other riwayat talk about the status of a shaheed. Mirza Taqi Khan, I may have mentioned his story. Mirza Taqi Khan, known as Amir Kabir. He was martyred in Kashan. And this is a dream which Ayatollah Araki narrated. He said he saw Amir Kabir in his dream. And he said to him, and he saw his, exalted status in Barzakh. So he's in Barzakh right now, like everyone else. So he saw his exalted status in Barzakh. Because you have Wadi Salam and you have Wadi Barhut in Barzakh. He said, what gave you this status? Is it because you fought all of these, firqahai zal, those deviated, sects that existed? You did qala kama, you removed them? Is that why it is? He said, no. Then like he said, is it because you were killed under oppression and with injustice that was done upon you and this martyrdom, is that because of your status? He said, no. He said, then why? He said, this is the ata of Hussein ibn Ali. This is the ata of Hussein ibn Ali. He said, explain. He said, when they had hanged me, Baghifin, I believe in Kashan, they had hanged me. And I was hung and I was slowly moving towards death. They cut off my veins and I was dripping blood. At that moment, atsh and thirst, extreme thirst overtook me. And I was about to ask them, can someone provide me water? And as it is customary, before you kill someone, go ahead and ask them for water, even for an animal. When you slaughter an animal, give them water before you go ahead and sacrifice them. He said, I was about to ask them, can you give me some water because I can't bear this thirst. He said, at that moment, I said to myself, Mirza Taqi Khan, they cut 2 of your veins and you're begging for water. Hussein ibn Ali was cut from top to bottom. He was sliced and he was hit, and his children, and yet they did not get a sip of water. And you're demanding water? He said, I fell on the ground, and those last moments, I see Hussein ibn Ali. He said, oh Mirza Taqi Khan, you remember our thirst. You remember our atsh. And out of the adab, you did not drink water. This is token of appreciation in Barzakh. The rest of the reward will be in the paradise. He said, this is the ata of Hussein ibn Ali. Salawat Muhammad wa So there's an act of goodness above every act except martyrdom, as nothing can be imagined above that. On the day of judgment, martyr will be able to intercede. Yes, there are many people aside from Ma'asumeen who will have the ability to intercede and do, be able to do intercession for us. And therefore one of them will be who? Martyrs. Martyrs will enter paradise from special entrance. Before anyone else can enter, they'll have special place for themselves. Amirul Mu'mineen possesses hundreds and thousands of virtues, doesn't he? He does. But only when he was martyred, he uttered these words, Fusto Rabbil Kaaba. He had success in the battle of Badr. He had success in the battle of Uhud. He had success in Ahzab. He had success in, Khaybar. He had success in so many occasions. Even when Amir al-Mu'mineen was announced as Man kuntu mawla fa'alin, that was a moment of success for him. But the only place that he utters these words, Fuzto, I'm successful. That means success has touched me. And by the Lord of the Kaaba. And not just Fusto without any other things attached with it. Fusto, by the Lord of the Kaaba. At the highest imaginable status. That's when he says when he was martyred. So here you understand that Imam had all of those hundreds and thousands of virtues, yet he never said, I was successful. The only place he uttered the words of success is only after attaining martyrdom. And therefore we understand he was the one, who had so many other things. As I said, for example, Prophet said about him, Baraz al-imanu kullu ala al-kufr kulli, when he was going against Amr ibn Abdawud. Zarbatu Ali yawm al-khandaq afdalu min ibadat al-thaqalain. One strike of Ali is superior to the combined worship of jinn and ins. All of these virtues, they can't even imagine. Khulafa used to take pride if we only had one of what Ali possessed. But Imam is choosing this moment of martyrdom when he's struck by the sword of Ibn Muljam to say what? Fusto. I am kamyab. I am leaving this world as in the state of success. So there we understand that infaq has many shapes and forms. One of the best ways of infaq is, this concept of martyrdom. Best work. Quran talks about in Surah Taghabun, verse number 3, says, خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ بِالْحَقِّ وَصَوَّرَكُمْ فَأَحْسَنَ صُوَرَكُمْ. He created the heavens and the earth with consummate wisdom, and He formed you and perfected your forms, and towards Him is your destination. So the concept of ahsan, beautification, the best possible. We see how everything that Allah does is best. Allah does not do anything which is secondary. Everything that He does or is associated with Him is the best. For example, He's the best creator. فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. He did not say this when He created the heavens, when He created the earth, when He created the planets, when He created, for example, the birds, when He created the jinns, when He created all of these other things that exist. When He created insan, what did He say? فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. It must have something to do with insan as well. That Allah is taking pride, that glorified is Allah, who is the best of the creators. When? After having created Hazrat Insan. His book, Quran, is the best book. نَزَّلَ أَحْسَنَ الْحَدِيثِ. He revealed the best conversation, best hadith. His stories are the best of the stories. أَحْسَنُ الْقَصَصِ. The best of the stories that He revealed in this book. He has best of the names. وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى. Husna are the best names that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala possesses. His rewards are the best. فَلَهُ جَزَاءُ الْحُسْنَى. That He gives that which is Hasin, which is Husna, which is the best. His covenants are the best. وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْحُسْنَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the covenant which are the best of the covenants. And His commands and orders are also the best. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ مِنَ اللَّهِ حُكْمًا. Who is superior to Allah as far as His hukm, His command, and His orders are concerned? So everything about our Khaliq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is what? Is ahsan, is best. Since everything He does is best, He expects us to choose the best in all of our actions as well. Because we are the creation for whom He took pride in. He said, فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. So when He's taking pride in our creation, that means there's expectation from us as well. That whatever we do, we should choose the path which is the best of the paths. We look at it. Our speech should be the best. وَقُلْ لِعِبَادِي يَقُولُ الَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Tell my servants that say that which is, as far as their hadith and their conversation is concerned, to be best of the conversations. So when you're speaking to someone, make sure that you use the best of the words. Even when it is what? He says our actions should be the best. أحسنوا عملا هو الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسنوا عملا. Best of the actions. So He expects best of the actions from us. When dealing with people, we should observe the best manner. idfa billati hiya ahsan. Treat them in the best possible way. Ahsan tariqa. And even when you're arguing with someone or debating, we should adopt the best method. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. You want to do jadal? You want to do argument? You want to debate with someone? Debate with them in the best possible manner. When thanking or greeting someone, our style should be better than the one who has greeted us first, or others for that matter. وَإِذَا حُيِّيتُمْ بِتَحِيَّةٍ فَحَيُّوا بِأَحْسَنَ مِنْهَا أَوْ رُدُّوهَا. When you are greeted with a salute, greet with a better one than that. Yours should be always superior to it. When you hear something, choose the best word and follow it. You may hear a lot of things. It's the age of technology. It's the age of information. You get information from all around. So many means. He said, choose the best of it and follow it. وَيَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلَ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَ. You hear all the aqwal, but you should follow that which is the best of all of them. When dealing with property and the wealth of the orphans, choose the best way. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا مَالَ الْيَتِيمِ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Yeah, that may not be relevant to us, but whenever you come across, and that was a relevant thing in the time of Rasulullah, that because of a lot of these wars, there were a lot of yatim, there were a lot of orphans. And these people who were taking care of these orphans were not paying attention towards that. He said, when you're responsible for malul yatim, make sure that you deal with it in the best possible. All of X should be done with the best intentions and for seeking nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, patented with God's colors. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ مِنَ اللَّهِ السِّبْغَةِ. That every single one of your actions should be color-coded with the color of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything should have Allah before it. And that's what Amirul Mu'mineen said. That I don't eat, that I don't do anything that before it is Allah and after it is Allah. So all of my actions are in between the two. So that's why I will never do anything which is against the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Muhammad wa Muhammad. So there are barriers and obstacles in infaq and helping others. What are some obvious barriers that could stop us and hinder in giving? We sometimes may not possess a lot, but you don't have to possess a lot to be able to give. That's not what this story over here is. Allah says what? He does not want the quantity, He just wants the quality of what you give. And even when a person who came and didn't have anything to give, the infaq was teaching someone, which was immaterial. So it's not about how much you possess or how much you don't or lack of. It's about how much your heart is big enough to separate that which is dearly beloved to you. That's when you attain the highest of the virtues. So one of the reasons and the barriers and obstacles in infaq and helping others is what? Fear of poverty prevents one from infaq. You fear that poverty, and that's the duty of shaitan, to go ahead and make you feel that fear. Fear of poverty prevents one from, for one of the reasons why people abstain from taking part in any type of infaq, whether wajib, whether mustahab, whether material, whether immaterial for that matter, is because the fear of losing it themselves. They feel that they will be deprived if they were to go ahead and help others in this reference. Quran points out this phenomena by saying that if all the world was given in your possession, قُلْ لَوْ أَنْتُمْ تَمْلِكُونَ خَزَائِنَ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّي إِذَا لَأَمْسَكْتُمْ خَشْيَةَ الْإِنفَاقِ وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ قَتُورًا. That if you possess all of the khazain, all of the treasures of the world, even if you possess the treasuries of the Lord's mercy, you will withhold them for fear of being spent, and man is miserable. Man is miserable. That even if you had all the treasures, so don't ever say that I wish I had 1 million, so then I can give that much. I wish I had 100,000, then I would give this much. I wish I had 10 million, then I will give that much. That is only fooling yourself. If you have 100, giving from that is equal and sometimes superior when you have 1 million and you give a lot away. So the concept which is being mentioned is that no, but insan is what? Allah summarizes it towards the end. وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ قَتُورًا. That insan is indeed miserable. There are few attributes of insan that are mentioned very bluntly in Quran. Very, very openly in Quran. That Allah declares insan to be possessive of that attribute. And that's not a good attribute to be associated with. One of them is here in this ayat of Surah Bani Israel, ayat number 100, that كَانَ الْإِنسَانُ قَتُورًا. Remember this. Qatura is iqtitar. Iqtitar is what? Iqtitar is when you hold it for yourself and you do not let it out. Person came and Imam gave an example. He picked up some sand and then he dropped it all. He said, this is israf. He picked up the sand and he did not let one of them to be dropped. He said that is iqtitar. That is qatur. That is holding back. That is as if your hand is tied to your back. You don't want it loose. And then the Imam picked again and then let some out and he kept some for himself. He said this is qiwam. This is between the two. This is neither israf nor is it iqtitar. So some of these attributes, I'll just highlight them very quickly as I'm coming towards the end of my time. خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. Insan is created ضعيف. You may think that you're powerful. You may think that you have a lot of strength, physical or otherwise. But according to Quran, خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. Insan is created ضعيف. Remember that example that I had given in the initial days of when we were talking about fasting? How this fasting every single day is a reminder of our life cycle. You wake up in the morning, you have strength because you've just eaten the sehri and suhoor. And even if you didn't eat it, for example, whatever was remaining from the last night, it still has strength in your body. That's when you're growing up, when the children, a 5-year-old be running around with all the energy in the world. You and I take 2 laps, we'll start, breathing heavily. And so where is he getting the energy from? He doesn't even eat that much. But there's this energy of, youth, for example. Children, then you look at them. But as you grow older, this energy starts to diminish. And at the end of the day, when you get old and you become advanced in age, there's very little energy. You can't expect an old man to be running and competing with, a child or young person. It's a fasting is the same way. You begin the day, you were strong, you had the strength. You go through the day as you're coming towards the end of the day, and you're getting weak and weak and weak. And at the end of the day, just at this moment right now, before namaz and getting close to breaking the fast, the weakness gets to its peak. Now, alhamdulillah, it doesn't affect you and I a lot because, we weren't outside, working hard and sweating in the heat of, 100 degrees. As those who have to do certain, jobs and, things that they're, taking a toll on their bodies. So, towards the end, you become weak. And that's what the life cycle is. That when a person is born, they're very active. And towards the end of their life, they're very slow and weak. So, insan is what? خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. Allah has created insan to be za'if. He said, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ خُلِقَ حَلُوعًا. That insan is created what? Impatient. These are blunt and very open attributes that Allah has associated with insan. I don't have time to go in the impatient nature of insan. He said, إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. Indeed, insan is zalim and jahul, jahil, ignorant. And not just zalim and jahil of a regular category. You ask Arab sitting where zalum is the superlative degree, mubalagha of zalim. And jahul is mubalagha of jahil. He is the, extravagant. He is the highest level of jahil and the highest level of zalim. That's what insan is. وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ أَكْثَرَ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا. Insan is बहुत झगड़ालू है, खड्डेबाज है, contentious. Right? I don't know, the Urdu word was much better than the English one. It doesn't give you that meaning. Very contentious. أَكْثَرُ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا. Right away, confrontation. You start confronting others. You start, disputing others. Very disputatious. That's what the, accolade of insan has been mentioned. So you got da'if.
Belligerent is the word.
Belligerent. You got da'if, you got halua, you got zaluman, you got jahula, you got qatura, you got aktharu shay jadala. These are very open attributes of insan that are mentioned in Quran, and we need to ponder that. Is it in our nature that we will always remain qatur, will always remain halu, will always remain da'if, will always remain zalum, will always remain jahul, or is the way out of it that these attributes are not fitting us? No, Allah did not enforce these things upon us. Definitely we can bring ourselves out of these attributes. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So one of the reasons why we refrain from infaq is what? Fear. Because of the fear of poverty coming upon it. Insan is afraid that if I give away, that I'm in need later on, what will happen to me? You remember the stories of Masumin. I'm running out of my time with so many stories in my mind that Imam Hassan and Mustafa gave everything away multiple times. Obviously keeping for his family as well, so they're not poor and impoverished and whatnot. But he gave everything away for the sake of religion. People said, Imam, you could have given a little bit less. Why so much? Why do you give everything away for the sake of the religion? He said, Allah gives me, so I give it away. If Allah stops giving me, I'll stop giving it away. But why should I break the trust that Allah will not bestow His mercy upon me again? And will not bestow me with His favors again, so that I should stop right now? That's breaching the trust of Allah. He gives me, I give it away. If He stopped giving me, God knows, I will stop giving away as well, because I won't have anything. Masjid asks you, Imam Markaz asks you, people ask you for donations, they'll keep asking you. Because God keeps giving you. The moment God stops giving you, they'll stop asking you as well for monetary funds or funds for running the center and funds for all these other things. Imam Muhammad Taqi alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, tell my followers that I am guarantor if you pay khums. I'm guaranteeing. I'm the guarantor for you if you pay khums. Person says to himself that I have 5,000 in saving, I should give up 1,000? Imam says, I am guarantor. Allah says that He will replace it. Your turn, right away you say, well, how is it when I give 20% away, it's going to increase? I know the math. I have 5,000, I'm taking 1,000 away from it, which is 20%. If anything that's happening is decrease, there's nothing increasing. I went from 5 to 4. So it was an increment. You ask any rational individual, nothing increased over there. We all know the math. If I spend, it'll decrease. Nothing will increase. I'll give you an example. A farmer comes and tells you that if you chop off this branch of grapes from its tree, more grapes will come out of it. But if you leave it hanging, it will die and it will not produce any more grapes. Guess what? Chopping sometime a branch of a tree produces more. Giving away from your wealth produces from the means that you don't even realize. But you gotta have that trust. So you keep the fruits on the tree and not pluck them after they have ripened. They will rot and they will fall off to the ground. Therefore you need to keep on giving away. That means you need to keep on removing that wealth from yourself. But if you keep it, that wealth will rot in. It's ripened. Go ahead and give it away so that you keep the wealth that comes to you fresh all the time. It's the example of that tree that I had mentioned. So there's no difference between those who took away the right of Fatima Zahra at that time and taken her right away in the form of fadak, and those who refrain from paying khums today. Because khums is the property of her grandson, of her son, Imam of our time. That was the property of Fatima Zahra. Those who usurped that property, just imagine their status, and those who are usurping the property of her son today, they're also in the same category to an extent. Because that's not ours. Have you ever said to yourself that when you have to pay the tax, that it's from my money which is going? You can't say that. They'll turn around and they'll strike back to you. But as soon as it comes to giving in the way of religion, in the name of religion, in the form of zakat or khums, right away we start questioning. That why do I have to give this much? I earned this money by hard means, and now they just want to take, for example, 20% away from me. Salawat Beji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. They can maybe got less than a minute remaining for namaz, maybe 2 minutes, so I'll just mention this quick story of infaq. Going away, this quick story. Allama Majlisi in Bihar narrates the story of Dhuhri, a companion of our fourth Imam, who said one day on a rainy, cold night, Arabia was not really that cold, but it was that way, and he saw Imam, our fourth Imam, walking in the streets with a large sack hanging on his back. I asked, O son of Rasulullah, what is this? Imam replied, I'm going on a journey, and this is my provision for travel. I asked him to give me the bag or to your servants to carry it for you. Why are you carrying it? You got servants, you're Imam. Even a person like me at my age, when I'm carrying something, when I go to someone's house, for example, they take the bag from my hand. Moulana, I'm younger than you, let me carry it. No, Moulana, we don't want you to carry. So this is the Imam. He said, why are you carrying it? Give the sack to your servant or me, I'll carry it. Imam responded, I asked you to, he said, no, I'll carry it myself. I asked you to please leave me and get to your work. I bid farewell and left. Zuhri said this. A few days later, I saw Imam, again in the streets. And I said to him, it seems that you did not go on that journey. Imam responded, I wasn't referring towards a worldly journey from one place to another. Instead, I was talking about a journey to death. I'm preparing myself for the travel, and the best way to do is to do infaq for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That sack of bag was not literally my clothes and my belongings. It was food and other items for the poor and the needy, and that was the infaq, and that was my preparation for the journey. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us a tawfiq and ability to be able to live our lives in infaq, to be able to give, whether it is a wajib or mustahab infaq. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Please recite Surah Fatiha for the sponsors marhumeen as well as your marhumeen. Surah Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghayril maghdubi 'alaihim.
والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح